Hello, Opening Pathways viewers. This is Tom LeNoble with another segment for you today. And I have Miguel Gamiño today, and I'm so excited. He's from Super City AI. Miguel, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Absolutely. It's great to have you with me. I'd love for you to tell the viewers a little bit about Super City AI before we get started.
Sure. We are an AI powered platform that makes it easier to interact between the government and the public. So, service delivery, access to information and resources, payments, um, uh, kind of a chat GPT type of experience that is kind of the official government access point for users to get what they need when they need it, powered by AI.
I think I heard a heavy sigh out there of people thinking finally, or, some help with this. It's great. I like this. We're going to learn more about it today. I want to know what sparked your first idea to start Super City AI.
Well, I spent a few years in the early 2000s as a startup founder. Then I got into government by chance, local government. Um, and I spent 8 years in that arena in charge of technology as the CIO or CTO in El Paso, San Francisco, and then New York City. Then I went to MasterCard and worked on their global government business from the payments perspective, but in a partnerships framework. And all of that just came to be the pieces that I ultimately put together, right? That formed the idea of Super City, where we could leverage the speed and talent and agility and creativity of the startup world with understanding from the inside the challenges of government trying really hard to deliver better service, but having all sorts of barriers to that. And then from the enterprise level, how those partnerships across that ecosystem are how you really manifest solutions that deliver value and kind of mutual beneficial outcomes, where you can do good work and do well financially, and deliver better service and kind of serve all of those outcomes with the right structure and the right partnerships. And that's the underlying kind of fundamental philosophy behind Super City, is bringing all those pieces together.
Love it. I love how our collective mileposts on the journey bring us to where we are sometimes.
Yeah,
Terrific,
yeah,
right?
absolutely,
Before
absolutely.
the launch, what were the key chapters in your backstory as it relates to early role models? So what was the upbringing like? Did you have early role models, mentors? What was that like that got you involved and maybe had an influence?
That's a really interesting question, Tom, because I've let me answer it slightly differently. Um, when people have asked me kind of what I look back on and feel like I could have done better, it's actually that. I actually was not good at seeking out mentors and advisors. And I can't really put my finger on exactly why. It's a combination of things, truthfully, but I didn't really do that part very well. So I did a lot more on my own than I really should have or needed to.
Hmm.
Now, all that said, certainly there are people that cross your paths or come in and out of your life along the way that have an influence on it, sometimes intentionally in a mentorship type framework, and sometimes without even knowing it. And I think as I look back, it was more of the latter, quite frankly, where I just had experiences and influenced by people that left a mark even when I wasn't conscious of it at the time, and then it came back later. I was like, oh wow, like I see things this way because of those experiences. So it's more of an experiential framework than
Interesting.
necessarily a specific. But I will say that when I was, you know, with dating myself, but what brought me into technology, the very kind of beginning of all of that was I was influenced by the I'll say this, tongue in cheek and with all sorts of affection. But the nerds became cool, right? And we're talking about, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, um, Woz. These people became characters in pop culture in regular life because of what they were building, not because of their hairstyle or their clothes. Or in fact, they were kind of the anti that, right? And so I think that inspired me at the very, very beginning. And then I saw the impact it had, and I saw how it like compounded. That impact compounded, right? When we thought the internet was going to be amazing because of email, and look at the world now. And I had a peek into that potential very early, and that's what inspired me from the very beginning to even consider technology as a career path in school, or like a subject in school in college. Because prior to that, a funny story is the only D I ever got in my whole educational career was in a typing class. Because I didn't in high school, and I just because I didn't, I was like, what do I need this for? I was that kind of narrow
Yes,
minded,
yes, yes.
and now look at me. So that's also a lesson in, you can have ideas and plans, and then life or the universe or whatever will show you who's really in charge.
It's really true. And
Yeah.
you're typing away today, you know.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
this idea you bring up about typing. I was the star of my class on an old manual typewriter, and it just says something about my personality. I just knew I could go as fast as possible if I could just do it. I could just go as fast as possible. But I love
Yeah.
it how this period you're talking about allowed nerds to be cool, and look what's happened as a result of that. And I say it affectionately as well. Let's talk about leadership style. Was there a pivotal point along the journey that revealed your leadership style?
Yeah, actually, two things. Um, in college, I went to work at some place that shall remain nameless because it taught me what not to do.
Mm.
Um, and then I went to work at some place that I went in. It was like it was. I'll give myself a little bit of credit for being thoughtful. It was intentional, but it was also kind of like like a little bit forced, because I went to work straight out of college at a place where I was in charge of the accounting department, and everybody there in that department had been working there longer than I had been alive. And I thought to myself the day before the first day of work, like my job, it just made it obvious that my job here wasn't to lead in the way that some people think leadership is. I wasn't going to teach them anything. I wasn't going to tell them how to do it better or differently. They had forgotten more than I would learn in the next year couple, you know what I mean? So it made it obvious to me, but it was intentional how I chose to take that situation. And I just told them that. I said, look, I'm not here to
Yeah.
teach you anything. I'm going to learn more from you than I'll ever teach you. But I am here to help you get what you need to get the job done, to to follow up on ideas that you have as the experts on how to make things better. Like that's what my role is. And was the very beginning of my adoption to the concept of servant leadership. And it was a beneficial moment that I was kind of, like I said, kind of forced into that reality. But my ability to see it instead of, be um obstinate to it was what I can take credit for. And then I leaned into it really hard, and I just adopted it, and I decided that no matter what, my job was to listen to people and support people, to help people grow in their own right, and that was going to be my view on what leadership really is.
Yes, yes, very interesting. On this journey with Super City AI, have you ever doubted your vision?
I mean, I want to say no. Like I think every founder's like, wants to be, the pillar of confidence. Um, but of course, there's, if it's not hard, it's not real. And if it's real enough, it's hard enough that there will be moments that make you kind of think to yourself or doubt. Sometimes I think anyone who says otherwise is
Yeah,
either not being honest with you or not honest with themselves, truthfully.
yeah,
And so, yeah, there's been moments where it was like, questioning not necessarily the overall ambition, but like some of the details, some of the approach, is this really the right way? And I think that's a healthy thing, frankly, because I'm very confident about what we're doing and why it's important that we do it. But um, I also think you have to balance that confidence with a little bit of humility because you could be wrong on some things, and the sooner you recognize it, the sooner you can pivot. And so, but if you're always second guessing yourself, then you're never moving forward. So I
yes,
think you have to have, it's like, 70% confidence, maybe 80% confidence in what you're doing and how you're doing it. And that 20% of, like, even if it's just private, all by yourself, like, let me think
yes,
that
yes.
idea through a little bit and interrogate it to make sure that I'm seeing all the angles.
Yeah, we've come up with a great name for a new book here, Conscious Pivoting. Of really being conscious of that because it's so easy to get off the mark and think of, okay, maybe I'm not on the right path and make changes
Yeah,
where you really validate them. It's real lessons along the journey that you're talking about here that I think are important for the viewers to hear.
and it's interesting, Tom, that you asked this question because last night I was working on our vision stuff, and I got it. I came across a couple quotes that really resonated. I say last night, but it was early this morning, and they're on target with what you just said. One was and I'm not a big quotes guy, so this is just a really interesting coincidence that we're talking about this particular question. But one quote was from Steve Jobs that was, I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance. So
Mm,
that speaks to like the commitment and seeing it through. But um again, you also have to have that little bit of insecurity to to check that, right? And then the other was Elon, who said, when something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor. And that's, again, kind of in that thread of the question that you just raised, right?
yes, yes. Stick with it, validate, um, keep moving, uh,
Yeah.
but be smart to take a look for
Yeah.
sure. So tell me, what was the biggest turning point for Super City AI? What was the big milestone that you knew this is it and we're on our way?
Um, wow. There's a few that have significance for different reasons. Um, we when we started our fundraising, well, it's a little even before the fundraising, but when we started talking to like the partners and the people that we needed to be involved, nobody said no. I mean, you would expect someone to be like,
Wow.
if, because these are people that I have very close relationships with that would have no fear telling me that's a bad idea, right? And to a person, they were all immediately on board. I mean, in one case, um, one of our partners, they're shareholders and they're part of the business. They signed a. We had an MOU before we even formed the corporation yet, so they were in before there was anything to be in, right? Um, and along those lines, I mean, uh, when we started doing the actual fundraising, um, we oversubscribed our pre-seed round by 50%,
Wow.
and we did that in 3.5 months. And fundraising is hard right now. Like, so we felt that was a huge moment of validation.
Absolutely.
And then we went, and then the go live. I mean, when we went live and we told the world that we existed, like the reaction on social media from, again, people who wouldn't be afraid to tell you it's dumb because they can hide behind the keyboard. Um, there was a lot of very positive, kind of like we said it, you said at the beginning, like a lot of sighs, like finally, right?
Finally, yeah.
So we got a lot. Those are probably three moments of like significant validation from kind of different perspectives.
Yeah, excellent. Really, really interesting. What did those early days teach you about trust?
Mm. Well, fortunately, I learned that lesson a long time ago, but it was reaffirmed in the Super City story because the three of us, me and my two co-founders, and again, it's a couple of those very, very early adopter or supporters. There was nothing but trust, right? I mean, we had a deck and an idea. Um, I stayed up all night, or not up. I stayed up one night and created the name and the logo. Literally, just did it um, with the help of a little sip of tequila.
Those
Um,
creative moments with a
yeah,
little
a
tequila.
little creative juice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Different people have different poisons.
Yeah, that's right.
Um, and yeah, it there was not that the point of that is there was nothing but trust, right? And we moved fast, and again, to a person, everyone just said yes. And I said, we don't have any money yet, we don't have any customers yet, we don't have a product yet, but that is what people were investing either their time or their money in, was trusting. And I'll tell you a couple stories, and I hesitate to mention the names only out of respect. I don't want to either name drop here, and I don't want to quote somebody without their permission. But very two very prominent mayors um, said, you know, I'm in to support. They're no longer mayors; they're former mayors. I'm in to support because I trust you. Like literally, it's separate conversations, almost like to the letter. They said the same things, and so we keep getting that, like the universe is providing, right, in that way where we're having these moments from the very beginning when we had nothing but a logo and a deck to just recently when we're going live, that comment
Amazing.
comes up again and again. One of our early investors just reinvested this week and text me exactly that. I trust you, and I believe in you, and I believe in the project. So without that, that's the ultimate currency here, Thomas, is that's what we're really trading on, not just in business, but in life, right?
I believe so in so many ways and so many different forms of the energy we put in life, whether it's our business, our personal relationships, the time we have, even our enjoyment is trusting and being able to. It's such a wonderful word and such a wonderful thing to know when you feel it. Tell me, we're in the time of technology racing forward. You're in AI, and it's some people it's very controversial. I certainly see it as a huge, huge opportunity, and I've seen a few opportunities in my life. I was with some Gen Z folks that I was working with, and we were talking about AI, and they were asking me back in time when things like this were. And so, I gave the email example, and then said I was in my early days at MCI standing over the first fax machine and watched it go, and was like, they confirmed it reached the other side, and all we could think it was magic, and look where we are today. And then I shared with them about such a thing called as a push button phone attached to the wall with a cord, and that was it. That blew their mind. They couldn't even go there with me. It was great. So, but I'm curious, how do you balance bold innovation of technology as fast as it's moving today, along with sustainability of keeping the lights on? Where does that get balanced out?
Well, I think we're in the phase in the AI world, or I should say every innovation, every technology movement. needs vision to build something that has never existed, um, to build something that is risky because it's a little bit like build it and they will come because it doesn't exist yet, right? And but it's also got to have utility. It's got to do something for people. Um, and I could go all the way. I mean, we could go back in history as far as you want and point at the ideas. One that comes to mind is the train, the rail system,
Yes.
right? Like it had to be, someone had to take risks to build it, but it had to do something, and that doing something was moving people, moving product, heck, moving gold. And at the same time, there would be no train robbers if there weren't trains. So bad actors are going to come to the new opportunity because that's what bad actors do.
Yes.
The train system didn't, the rail system didn't invent the bank robber. The bank robbers were just previously doing something else nefarious, right? Until the trains came around and there was the new opportunity. And the internet is no different. There was no cyber crime until there was cyber. There were criminals, but they find a new vector. And I think AI is very similar in that it has to have bold ambition behind it to build things that are risky, but it's got to deliver value to people. And, it's got to move people, to extend the metaphor, right? And so, but also we have to be conscious that there are bad people who are going to try to exploit it,
Yes.
just like everything else. And so we have the benefit of a closer proximity to the rear view mirror, right? So that I think we have a better chance of learning from the internet age, right? Because it was closer to us, that those of like people are still alive that experienced that evolution as this next one is happening. So those lessons learned aren't a generation removed. They're still, some of
Yes.
us were around for both, right? And so I'm hopeful that we'll be more aware and conscious of it, because the challenge is that AI, generally speaking, accelerates everything, the good and potentially the bad,
Mhm.
exponentially. So I do think that we have to be aware of how we're using it and be very responsible with it and ready to react when something happens that we didn't anticipate, but put that in that bucket where it belongs. The rest of it is incredibly fun and has huge potential to move things in a positive direction for society, generally speaking. And same thing like the internet, there'll be some winners and some losers. I firmly believe there's more winners than losers in this case, and that's why we're bringing it to bear in the way that we can see is responsible in this local government, local community context.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm talking to a lot of CEOs like yourself and founders and the AI space, and I'm fascinated by the different almost niches that are forming of and focus is just fascinating to me. I'm interested to know how you protect your team culture when things are really moving fast in our startup worlds.
Oh, well, you lean back on that trust factor, truthfully. I think my co-founders and I have had more than one heart to heart late at night or early in the morning on Zoom or whatever in person sometimes when there are those challenging moments, and we just, you know, anyone is capable of making a mistake. In fact, it's inevitable. And I think trusting each other, not just among the founders group, but across the organization, is the bedrock to not only maintaining the culture, but even evolving it in the right direction,
Mm.
right? Trusting each other and giving each other the benefit of the doubt first. So and so might, or this team or this group or so and so might be starting to act off. You can jump to the conclusion that the culture's breaking down, that the person is just bad, that they never really believed in it from from day one. You can subscribe to all that immediately if you want to, or you can take a beat and think, I trust this person and I respect this person. Maybe something's going on with them, or maybe
Yeah.
I'm something's going on with us that is affecting them differently. And so I think you have to lean back on that. And it's easier to do in the early days when you're small. It's much harder when I was, at large organizations. New York City government employs like 500,000 people, and that not that I worked with all of them, but it's a big enough organization that it does get harder to manage those things. So I also recognize that as we grow, I'm enjoying the time now when you
Yes.
can, you can have these screw ups and recover, and still maintain the camaraderie and the trust. It's easier to do when you're small, it's harder to do when you're big. But if you lay the foundation really well concretely at this stage, then you hope that those seeds bear fruit over time,
Mhm.
right? And that it permeates.
Yes. Good. Very good. Tell me, how does Miguel define success beyond metrics?
I mean, truthfully, a sense of impact, not just on the business goals, but on the people that you encounter. Um, you know, Financial success is important. It's a lot more important to other most people than it is to me. Probably, I'm more motivated by the opportunity to do something meaningful, to leave a mark in a positive way, not just on the market or on the customers or on the employees, but more broadly on the world. And I don't mean that in a grandiose way, but in some way,
Hmm.
having that impact. Um, that's really the objective, frankly, for me. Um, money's Money enables that. It doesn't define that.
Excellent. Very thought-provoking. Tell me, what's the boldest vision for you in 5 years?
Oh wow. Um, I mean, I think in the context of well, in the context of Super City, I think it's a matter of reaching globally, reaching, millions of people and giving them a completely different um sense of connectedness to not only each other and the government. And I don't mean in like a social media Facebook way where I can connect with long lost friends, but I very genuinely feel like there's a lot of talk about the fracture and the divisiveness politically and in community, and it's true, 100%. And it was there when I was in government, and it's only gotten worse. And I feel like empathy and transparency from a objective point of view and leaning on the technology to provide that. But I think we really genuinely have an opportunity to contribute to the healing. I don't pretend like we'll be the the solution to it all, but I do feel like if we do what we're set out to do, um, we're going to be able to look back and know that we've meaningfully contributed to
Yeah.
community coming together a bit better. And some people that doesn't sound like a lot, or it sounds like rainbows and daffodils, but it's real.
When things get tough, it happens in business. When things get tough, what keeps you inspired to continue on?
Um, Good old fashioned stubbornness sometimes.
Yeah.
That's one of those personality traits that is a double-edged sword, Sometimes it works against you, but often it works for you. You just refuse to quit.
Yes.
You get up and you're tired, but you get up in the morning because that's just what you're gonna do. Yeah, I don't need a long list of reasons or motivations. I don't need, frankly, a inspirational poster on my wall or an inspirational book to read all the time. Part of it is I'm just doing it because I'm built to do it and I haven't finished,
Yes,
period.
yes.
And until I'm finished, I'm gonna get up and keep it moving. So it's good old fashioned. That's why that quote resonated with me about perseverance. I think uh, that's a lot of what it is, really.
I agree. I agree. I talk with um, a lot of people in my practice that are on the verge of something great and just need to persevere a little longer, and their knees are shaking and knocking, and they're ready to turn and run, and you can sense by what they share with you that they're on the edge of something great, and holding that space to allow them to see that is really, really rewarding for me. I'm interested what you would tell an emerging leader starting a new company, a new founder today. What would you share with them? What would be your words of wisdom?
Um, it's gonna be hard. Um, Most people only read the last chapter of the story, right? They they don't know a founder's story until they become popular, and they only become popular once they've become successful. And sometimes the biographers forget to tell, or they write it in a book that no one reads, right? But pop culture celebrates the success chapter, not the work chapter. And I think this life as a founder is going to be full of sacrifice, hard ones, personal ones, and challenges. And you're going to have to be willing to do things that other people won't. Um, and you're going to have to stick your neck out and take risk and be fearless. And, uh, but all of that to the right cut person, to the right, cut from the right cloth, that doesn't, if what I just described to you sounds terrible, it might not be, it might not be for you. But if what I just said sounds like a challenge, like it makes you sit up in your chair, then you're probably built for it, because that's what it takes. It takes that backbone. It takes just enough um ambition and masochism, right? To be willing to do what is hard because what it looks like on the other side, right? Um, and when you get to the other side, it's, when you have those successes, celebrate them and enjoy them, take them in. There's lots of euphemisms and phrases out there, but being a founder is absolutely like a roller coaster. Like when you're on the high, it feels like
Great, yes,
invincible. And when you're in the low, it feels lonely and desperate. And those two things can happen before lunch,
yes,
you know? And you got to be capable and prepared to ride it, to see it through. But if you are, there's a special place at the end of the journey, right? That's why not everyone can or should do it,
yes,
frankly.
yes. If nothing more than a shot of good tequila, huh?
Yeah,
Um,
sometimes that's what it takes.
So tell me, I have one final question for you, Miguel. If your younger self were listening to this episode of Opening Pathways, what would you tell them?
Well, kind of honestly, where we started. Don't overlook the value of mentorship. You're not as smart as you think you are when you're young. And unfortunately, you don't realize that until you're older. And so that would probably be the principal thing. And the second thing I would say is just do it and don't quit. Trust yourself, trust your gut. Um, find the people that trust you and trust them back. Um, and I wish that earlier in my life I had realized what I was actually working for to one of your other questions. Because in the beginning, when you're young and dumb and influenced by external factors, you think that it's all about money or attention or fame. And unfortunately, it takes a minute for most of us to realize that's really not what it's about. And the sooner you realize that, I think the sooner you get on the actual course.
Yeah.
And the things that seem important that later you realize were distractions, the sooner you recognize that and dismiss them, and stop being distracted with it, I think the sooner you get focused on the real mission. So I wish I could go back and tell myself to get that together earlier.
Yes. Yes. You know, we may have to do round two one day, Miguel.
Yeah, yeah, this was
Miguel
fun.
Gamiño with Super City AI. I am so glad you're here with me today. Thank you for being here, Miguel.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's been fun.
And to my viewers, this is another episode of Opening Pathways, and I'll see you next time.